Welcome everybody. Hopefully you're all having a fantastic day so far. First, most importantly, let's just do a quick audio visual check. I see a couple of you guys waiting here. So if I could just get confirmation that you can see my charts clearly, you can hear me clearly, all that sort of good stuff. And just giving a minute for some people to join because this was very last minute. Something caught my eye. I just took a ton short. I decided I better create this event and take a look at some things. Also, recently entered a new Bitcoin position, so I want to talk about that. Have I done here? Let me just get something here. 1 second. There. Hopefully I fixed that. Whoops. Yeah. Anyways, if I could just get a quick audio visual check, you guys can hear me and see everything clearly. Mostly just babysitting on the shorter time frame. Today. This is going to be much shorter. I know yesterday we did about a 2.5 hour live stream. Nothing like that today. Just kind of wanted to go over how that position yesterday I laid out ahead of time, how it kind of played out, and as well what I'm looking at right now for my couple positions. Chaos, welcome. Always love to have you here, brother. Good to see you. Hopefully you can hear me and everything sounds good. Kate, perfect. Yeah, it looks like we're starting to fill up. We have over 20 people watching now. So first of all, if you guys could do me a huge favor and hit that like button and as well subscribe. So this is obviously on the Financial Summit page. I also have my own YouTube page, but I do live streams on both. So make sure you're subscribed to both if you don't want to miss anything. These videos are very much appreciated. Right on. I love to hear it. I love to hear that people are actually taking some useful information from these streams because I know a lot of people do look at the larger time frame and that sort of stuff. And, it's, analyzing the macro time frame. And honestly, that's what most people trade and honestly should trade. But I find that trading these shorter time frames, I can show so many examples, right? There's so many of these trade setups that I like taking. So just perfect example. And yeah, like I said, I just recently entered a couple shorts. So so far, so good. I will go into those in a second. I'll see a whole bunch of familiar faces here. Right on. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Thank you once again for joining. I always appreciate doing these with you guys. But yeah, if everything looks and sounds good, I think we'll basically get started with the bulk of it. So yeah, perfect. All right. Welcome to another live stream, everybody. Well, guys, in yesterday's stream, I mentioned several times that I was looking to short this 5-minute structure setup I'm going to talk about in a second. Basically, if we showed weakness around my 786, 886 fib pocket, and that's exactly what happened. So I ended up taking a beautiful short there, reached my target and then some. And I've recently taken a new short on Bitcoin due to the same type of setup, which I will also go into, as well as another similar setup on Toncoin I just took recently before starting this stream here. So today's stream, like I said, it's going to be much shorter than yesterday's. Not going to be here for 2.5 hours again, I promise. But I just kind of wanted to go over how the trade setup last night played out and why I'm in the current shorts on BTC and on TON, and just kind of watch the charts for a little bit live with you guys. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if you do appreciate these live streams, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel as well as my own. If you appreciate, my take on the market, my explanations of my personal trading strategies, how I look at structure, et cetera, those likes and subscribes go a long way. So yeah, basically to go over, first of all, I'm going to get rid of this one just to clear things up a little bit. I'm going to erase the whole current position and just talk about yesterday's. So yesterday during the stream, I was actually asked, as we were trading down, I think we were somewhere in here and someone had asked me, if you're sure that we're going down towards 58, I think it was, 58.3, I think was the target at the time. If I was so sure about going there, why not just enter my position a little bit late and hit it anyways? Basically, I was saying that, I was interested in the 5 minute structure a little bit more. So either this red box here, which I had outlined, or the lower high structure on the 5 minutes. So the way I was looking at this very quickly was just basically, and this is going to be micro analyzing once again, but just the immediate downtrend we had, right? This is where we had a low, we had a little bounce here, but we set another lower low here. So the highest point between the two is what I was looking at as our lower high on the immediate trend on the 5 minute. So that's where I pulled my Fibonacci from. And I said, if we saw weakness inside that fib pocket, the 786 to 886, which was between approximately 60,000 to 60,250. You can see we got right up into the middle of that box. We started to see some weakness. I actually caught this a little bit late. I wasn't really paying attention. And I just saw that we had got rejected here basically. And it just looked like, we had a bunch of signals on the indicators showing that there was potentially a volatile move coming to the downside. So yeah, basically took that. And yes, it obviously reached my range target. You can see we basically dumped right down to that 214, which I was talking about in yesterday's stream. And that ended up being right around 58.5K actually. The 786 would be slightly lower because that 214 is just front running it a little bit. So yeah, that basically played out. We actually went a little bit further. So that's usually my range target. We actually got a full on double bottom liquidity grab even, we had this little fake out. So if you notice that, and then seeing that we ended up holding that support, I mean, that would have been a nice long opportunity as well. You guys know I'm not as interested in long positions these days. But yeah, it basically that short played out beautifully. Then we ended up bouncing. I got stopped out at break even basically at a perfect, unfortunately stopped out there. But yeah, just to go back a little bit, actually, let's just reload my chart here just so we can bring up the current position I'm in, because I just noticed something that might make me close it a little bit early. But yeah, basically we have not yet broke that lower high structure, this red trend line up here. Let me just erase these yellow lines because that was yesterday's trade setup. So now what we have, you guys, is basically the same type of setup, right? So yes, it's already started this move. The moves happen very quickly on a 1 minute and 5 minute, but basically it's the same type of setup, right? Because here we had our low, and we ended up setting a slightly lower low. So the highest point between those two is where I'm looking at as our current lower high structure. So I'm actually going to move this red line down to where our current new lower high would be, right? I'm actually going to get rid of that red box as well. And then notice where we ended up finding resistance there. So had I been paying closer attention and I wanted to keep my risk on the table, yeah, I absolutely could have just kept my stop loss above here. When I noticed what was happening, I just ended up taking another new short. Basically, this entry is actually slightly worse than the one that I had yesterday. The one yesterday was up a little bit higher by $100 or something like that. But this one so far, it's still looking okay, right? And something else that I want to talk about is just some added confluence why I actually re-entered short right here. That is basically because if I bring up the auto charting tools and pull a Fibonacci from that lower high signal, this is another strategy I've been teaching on a lot of these live streams, right? So as far as the structure goes, we did have a fib pull from this. I know on the auto charting this says higher high, but with how I was looking at the structure with the lower low, this is our lower high. So pulling a fib from there, yes, absolutely beautiful Stuber fib pocket there. But on top of that, we also had this one, right? So I can pull another fib from this lower high signal down to where we bottomed out there, and look where we end up finding a little bit of resistance, right? Basically right at the 786. So that's, again, I just had a short order at the 786 there. And this one has actually technically already played out, right? Because we've already reached my 214 target, but I'm hoping to go a little bit further. If we start finding support here, I might actually end up closing it a little bit early here. But I'm still kind of looking at this bigger play here. I'm still, since that's more so the size of the current range, just because, again, that's from my lower high structure down to our lower low. I still think that there's a little bit of room to go to the downside, down towards 58,260, somewhere in there. I have a order front running that a little bit, just basically at 58.3K. To close a quarter of my position if we get there. But like I said, if we start finding support here, I might actually close some a little bit early. But that's basically my reasoning why I took a short here and what I'm looking for with that. So again, nothing has changed here, right? These are all just the same type of setups that I look for on every time frame. You know, I'm always showing these on the weekly time frame, the 4-hour time frame, the 5-minute, the 1-minute. This is basically my trade setup, my trade strategy, right? I love entering at 786, 886 after a structure break and looking for that range play, basically. So that's how I like scalping, and then hoping that at least half the position ends up running from there after my range target is hit, right? But yeah, with Ton, same thing, right? Basically, we end up getting this lower high signal on the 5-minute with my auto charting tools. Pull a Fibonacci. Where do we end up getting struggling with resistance? You can see, again, we just filled this absolutely perfectly. So as we dropped out of that, I ended up taking a little bit of short. And that's when I decided that I should really do this last minute live stream, because it's just, you know, potential that there's some volatility looming. You know, just looking at Ton like this, obviously there's a mess in the fundamentals with that, with the founder getting arrested and stuff like that. But aside from that, just looking at the indicators here, auto charting tools, you can see that we've switched from a series of higher highs, higher lows. Now we've set a lower high and lower low. So there's just potential that the trend is shifting a little bit, right? So yeah, I was just hoping to catch a couple of shorts here, basically. So we'll have to see how those play out. How is everyone else feeling about the market? Is there, are you in any positions on Bitcoin, altcoins, mostly just spot positions? How is everyone feeling on the market right now? I turned someone on to the 5-minute trades. Love it. Always love welcoming a new degenerate into the scalping, the degenerate time frames. So yeah, I myself, and I mean, I say that, but I am joking. Everyone has their own trading styles that work for them. And honestly, if you're not into trading the 5-minute or the 1-minute, I still trade longer time frames basically the same way, right? I just have to basically drastically scale down leverage, and they take a lot longer to play out. So I just find that trading the shorter time frames, I'm like, much like yesterday, where I felt like I had missed a position on the 1-minute, but I really never had any urge to FOMO into it, because I was like, you know what, there's a good chance that I'm going to find another entry either last night or then today. So you know, on the shorter time frames, you see your ideal setups show up more and more, and that way I just find it's a way for me to fight FOMO a little bit. So I'm not, oh, I missed my entry, I'm going to enter late kind of a thing. I'm a lot more likely to actually maintain my discipline on a shorter time frame, and that's not for everybody. All right, trading the shorter time frames, I say this every single live stream. Trading the 1-minute and the 5-minute leads to over trading, revenge trading, over leveraging, all those bad habits we're supposed to ignore. So just understand your own, what works for you, basically, right? Because we could have the exact same charts, same trend lines, same indicators, and we would trade this market completely different. So, but yeah, that's basically what I'm looking at this point as far as the shorter time frames here. Looking at Bitcoin on the 4-hour, nothing has changed here, right? Obviously, we're basically trading right where we were yesterday, right? We've just been in this little sideways consolidation here. And absolutely, you know, I am being cautious with these positions, right? I am quick to take, you know, a good chunk of my position off the table, because I think we are in basically the middle of a range here, and actually towards support of that middle of the range, right? Because like I pointed out yesterday, we have been testing this 786. If I bring up the auto charting tools on the 4-hour here, this indicator is agreeing with this Fibonacci pull, because, you know, I have a higher low here, higher high, beautiful pivot points, great confidence and confluence for pulling a Fibonacci, right? So yeah, there's absolutely the possibility that we end up getting some sort of a bounce to the upside. And if we end up playing that range, I mean, that the target of that type of a setup would be up right back up around 63,000. So that could be a nice little bounce if we end up getting it. My concern, and I kind of went over this yesterday a little bit, was that, you know, if you really zoom out and break this down to very, very basic market structure, day one lessons kind of market structure, you can see we obviously just have a series of lower lows and lower highs. This is not a personal opinion. This is fact. I mean, you can see I have these red lines here as we break our lows, and we have just continued to set lower lows, and that confirms our lower highs. Every time we've got one of these lower highs, it's been in that 786, 886 fib pocket. And this rally, we actually got shut down, significantly earlier. Yes, we got very close to the 786. I was saying, anywhere from 65K up to 68K would be a good resistance target, where everyone would end up getting very bullish into resistance once again. This time it happened a little bit sooner, and we actually never even made it quite to the 786. Even the 786 got front run. All the other 3 times we had these structure breaks, we got pinpoint accurate to the 886. So this rally got shut down early, and that's kind of a red flag to me. The fact that we're showing weakness so early after we've broke structure to the downside so many times. Even the weekly, setting lower lows on the weekly is a very big deal. This RSI trending to the downside. So basically we're trading sideways and we're getting less strength, right? Less relative strength index. Another thing that really, I shouldn't say scared, actually excites me about looking at things bearishly right now is notice this yellow box. So basically the reasoning for this yellow box, I have this little order block here. So basically, before we ended up breaking this structure to the downside, this is where we ended up, the bears got shut down. We end up finding support after that, right? Notice that, after we reclaimed this level here, that could have been a very bullish sign because we reclaimed some structure, but we ended up losing it again. And the unfortunate part about this is after we lost it again, we have flipped that support into resistance perfectly. Look where those weekly candle bodies are closing, right along the top of that box. And I know this doesn't look like much, but this has actually happened once within this range already. If we go to this level, because this is where we ended up getting, we set this little low here. Yes, it was very brief, but we ended up closing candle bodies even higher the following week. So I was looking at this box as, we ended up dropping that. That was kind of a big deal. We ended up reclaiming it. Again, this could have been a very bullish sign, but we ended up dropping it once again. What happened after we end up dropping that level is once again, we ended up flipping this old support into perfect new resistance, just like we're doing right here. Last time this happened, it obviously made us create lower lows, which is a significant deal because that's changing the structure of the chart. And on a weekly time frame and even the daily and 4 hour, that's a very big deal. So the fact that we're seeing that once again, that potential same thing that we got here is potentially lining up here. If we end up setting another lower low, at what point does the market just open the floodgates and we actually get a breakout, right? Because when you look at this is just sideways chop. It is bearish structure. The fact that we lost higher lows, we started setting lower lows, lower highs. But at the end of the day, there was no breakouts, right? It was just very healthy price action, actually, where we'd get a structure break followed by a pullback, then a structure break, then a pullback, then a structure break, then a pullback. We haven't seen an actual breakout. So I know a lot of people think that this is max pain and, the market, this is the big capitulation the market needed. I mean, when you zoom out, this isn't a capitulation. This is a sideways trading range. And I know a lot of people think that that means it's accumulation because we're trading sideways in an uptrend. The thing is that uptrend was lost right here, right? Back in, I think this was actually April. Yeah, at the start of April, basically, we technically lost our weekly uptrend. And yes, it takes a long time to play out. And that's something that a lot of people have a hard time with when you're looking at longer time frames. People think that Bitcoin needs to move very aggressively, very quickly. But when we're looking at something like a weekly chart, yeah, those patterns take longer than a couple days or hours to play out, right? I mean, if something's on a weekly chart, there's a good chance that's going to take, weeks or months to play out, kind of a thing. So yeah, that's basically why I still have a bit of a bearish bias. Honestly, I'll trade this market either direction. I'm basically the reason why I'm looking at things bearishly right now is, and I know a lot of people think I'm a perma bear recently and stuff like that. I want to be clear about this. I'm very bullish on crypto as a whole, and I don't even think this market cycle's over or anything like that. I just think that there's absolutely possibility of an actual big correction, and that we have not seen an actual big correction yet. 30% to the downside or whatever it's been since we got this reversal signal. What did we get? Yeah, basically 30% correction to the downside. For Bitcoin, that's not a huge move. Yeah, that's an average decent sized pullback on macro timeframes. But, as far as a big capitulation event where big players are going to fill their orders and stuff like that, I have a feeling that hasn't happened yet. Obviously, if we start breaking these structure levels, then everything changes, and I will write down my own words and eat them. But as it stands right now, it is what it is. Just something that's catching my eye on the 5-minute chart here, you guys, is I am actually going to close half of my long, or not half my long, half of my short position, because as I always say, I think it's more important to be able to react than predict. And basically, when I enter a short time frame trade like this, actually, here, let me finish what I'm doing here. I just need to close half that position just in case, and then I'll explain why here. I'll close 40% of it. So basically my reasoning for that is when I'm entering trades, especially when I'm scalping, trading shorter time frames like this, is I'm looking for reasons to get out of my position, or if not to get fully out of my position, looking for reasons to downsize my risk at the very least, and just to remember to pay myself a little bit in the process, right? So yes, even though this is a small range, it is what it is. And I just see something that caught my attention. And that's with the auto charting tools here. We got this higher low signal print. So if I pull a Fibonacci from that, like I was talking about, as a strategy that I like to play quite often, since that's kind of, that would be basically the long entry level, would be starting a long position around that 786. So the fact that we got to that after this signal printed, I'm going to take that for just basically a reason to take some profits. And also, like what I said, with that opposite Fibonacci pull, we did reach my range target already, right? So from this lower high signal on the auto charting tools, just pulling the Fibonacci like so, from the 786, you can see that we did just recently hit my range target. So yeah, I have no problem closing almost half my position there, just because I always treat the start of my trades as a scalp. I'm always very quick to start closing between a quarter to half my position, updating my stop loss to break even. And then I hope this absolutely dumps, right? Like, if I can catch a big nuke with the rest of my position, then great. But I just want to rest easy knowing that I have no risk on the table right now with this position, basically. What's Ton doing? Ton is trying to bounce a little bit. I'm just going to leave Ton right now, being that I just downsized. Well, I actually removed the risk from my Bitcoin position because stop losses are now at break even as well. But I'm just going to leave Ton. I'm going to leave my stop losses just above this lower high signal, basically. 5.666, one of those devil levels. But yeah, basically, I'm going to leave this one run. I'm really hoping that this one also hits my range target from this fib pull. Macro looks bearish. I agree that again, I personally think the macro looks a little bit bearish. But again, I'm happy to be invalidated, right? That's the thing. If structure breaks, I'll change my opinion, because I'm not just going to say, okay, my bearish target wasn't reached, even though structure changed. I am holding on to that opinion. You know, you see some of those people with large followings who actually do that, who refuse to change their bias, and they just get stubborn about it. Even though structure has completely changed. That's not how we trade. I mean, trading, you need to be able to react to the price action, right? Predicting is fine, but trading it is a whole nother thing. Someone from India loving my strategy. Right on. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Do I market in or limit into my positions? Usually I like to limit in, you know, because when that structure break happens is generally when I have decided I want to take a position, like this one, for example. You know, basically after we got this little pivot here, I just set an order right at the 786, basically, because it is always better. I mean, your fees are drastically improved when you do limit orders rather than market as well. Then you don't have the risk of slippage and stuff like that, obviously. But sometimes if I really want to be in a position right now and there's something that I missed or whatever, and I need to get in, or I feel like I need to get in right now, sometimes I will do a market order. I try and avoid it just for the fees. Where did I learn these mad chart skills? You know, I've learned from some good traders along the way. Some of them randomly do live streams in this channel. You know, I learned a lot from Sammy Loyal, for example, MDX Crypto. I've learned a ton from guys like that. And just honestly, I would say mostly just back testing and staring at way too many charts. If I'm being honest, I've probably spent way too many hours looking at charts and maybe becoming a little autistic about it. I don't know, but I've stared at a lot, and I've done a lot of, like I said, back testing, you know, going back on Tradingview, using the replay feature, very powerful. And honestly, even before, you know, like this is the strategy I'm showing on all my streams. Like it works for me, right? But not everybody's going to pick it up the same. I've seen many other people across social media and stuff like that say, oh, here's the Stuber setup. And when I look at it, it's actually not, right? So everybody sees things a little bit different, but it's important to go back and back test, right? If you think that you're looking at things the same as me, I mean, go back in the chart and replay it and see how many times those strategies play out, kind of a thing, right? It's good to go into a trade knowing approximately what your probabilities are, right? So yeah, at least have something to go off of rather than just gut feeling. So yeah, it's really just experience, you know, trading for a few years. Scumdog, welcome, brother. Good to see you in here. Hit that like button. Absolutely. I appreciate that. If you guys do appreciate these videos, you know, the strategies that I like, that I explain, how I look at structure, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the Financial Summit so you don't miss these, as well as my own YouTube channel. I also stream there. So that ton pump caught you off guard. Yeah, honestly, this morning, me as well. Like I said yesterday, I was in a ton short as well in yesterday's video. I ended up, you know, as always, I take profits along the way, but it did randomly get stopped out. And I looked at it and I was like, holy hell, that really took off there. And Bitcoin never really did the same. So yeah, that did catch me off guard a little bit. I never suffered from it at all, but I was just hoping it was going to go the other way, because I did have some of a position still running, right? So I had to recently re-add to that. But that's the thing. It's going to be volatile, right? There's some fundamentals there right now, especially, that are just, it's going to be volatile. I'm not a fan of using fundamentals to pick a trading direction, but just more so being open to the possibility of, hey, there's reasons for a lot of volatility here. Yes, there's reason for bearish momentum with Ton, for example. But that being said, I'm still waiting for those confirmations in the chart, right? Like just because something fundamentally bearish happened doesn't mean I'm going to blindly hit that short at 50x or short at 20x or whatever, right? I'm still waiting for those pullbacks, those structure breaks, that sort of thing. 44K incoming. Yeah, you know what? I would be all for 44K because that would line up quite well with this range back here on the weekly chart, right? I know I went over this yesterday a little bit. That's really the only I know I was talking about some pretty crazy downside targets and not saying they have to happen, but they're possible that we drop much lower. But basically, this is the level, in my opinion, that needs to hold. If we do see a big dump to the downside, I think we really need to hold that range because there's not much else on the way down, right? And basically, until the macro Stuber fib pockets. And I know I don't even feel right bringing this up every video, but I think it is important just to be aware of the possibility. Again, not that it's probable, but it is possible. And my reasoning for that is basically if we lose this level, the only consolidation we really had on this upwards move here, if we lose that, I mean, there was nothing here, right? We didn't form any structure here. So it does make sense that if we lose that range, we would just nuke right to the 786. And those are much lower levels than people want to accept as a possibility, right? The 786 on the macro time frame is down at around 28k. The 886 is around 22k. I know it feels like that can't happen. It has felt that way in the past, and it absolutely did happen as basically a mid-cycle capitulation event. Yes, this was a black swan event. That was COVID. But there's a lot of unease around the world right now. There's wars, there's elections, there's a lot of things going on right now that could potentially have some sort of a black swan event that does push the price there. I do think it takes some sort of an event to push us down to these levels, but just the charts are saying it's possible basically. But like I said, I mean, we do technically still have support here, that 44 down towards 40,000 basically. Yeah, I absolutely think it's possible we bounce from there because there's actually structure there. But like I said, if we lose that level, there's just a big gap down basically from 40,000 straight down to 28,000. So yeah, that's just something to be cautious of if we do start dumping to the downside basically. I see someone short now, 12K incoming. I don't know about 12K, to be honest. I really don't think that we break last bear market lows. I don't think we're going to go that low. And I also don't know if shorting right now is a great idea just because of what I outlined. Just I think we could get a little bit higher since we are technically finding support on the 786 here. There is potential that we bounce a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I'm still holding part of my short here just because I think there's absolutely potential that we keep dumping, right? The structure is there. We still have, and I'm actually going to remove the auto charting tools here just to go by blind, just naked chart structure. This was our low. This is our lower low. That's our lower high. So that's why I have that Fibonacci pulled. So this is the range. What I have outlined with the Fibonacci's right now, this is the current range. And I like to play the range first and then hope for a breakout basically. But yeah, on the bigger time frame, I shouldn't say bigger time frame, the bigger range on the 5-minute chart, this is kind of the range I'm looking at. The bottom at around 57.7K and the top at about 60.2K. Currently what I'm looking for or looking at. I'm going to erase this arrow just because you guys know why my Fibonacci's are here. I mean, this is basically my target on this Ton short. Front running it a little bit, but I will be closing a quarter of my position there. And if it looks like we're finding some sort of support there or some sort of strength, then I'll close another quarter and just leave half my position run basically. Zero, you have opened a short at 57.8K. So I totally understand what you're getting at there. So you shorted basically, oh, basically the perfect bottom. Hey, so this is a thing that a lot of traders get wrong. And this is what I was kind of talking about on the 4 hour, that people love getting bullish into resistance. Here, let me just map out a few Stuber fibs just so you can see. There's the first one. There's the second one. There's the third one. So basically, every time we got to resistance is when people started screaming for all-time highs and looking to FOMO in, basically longing the hell, 50x longs, 100x longs, wait until resistance to do it. Then on the other side of things, as soon as we would break structure to the downside, that's when people like to short, right? So people love shorting into support and love buying into resistance. That's, well, I shouldn't say that. They don't love doing it. It's just instinct, because the thing is, you're not wrong, right? The fact is that where you shorted down here, that is a break of structure, right? That is a low and a lower low. The thing is that after you break structure, so often you get that pullback. And that's why I love pulling Fibonacci's, right? Because it just makes sure that I'm not FOMOing into a breakout and I'm actually looking for a proper retest. Yes, sometimes you miss it, and sometimes you do just get an absolute breakout nuke. Unfortunately, yeah, sometimes you're going to miss that if you're waiting for a proper pullback. But that being said, I find that pullbacks are so much more common than just a straight breakout, right? So I agree that this is a little bit of a bearish sign, because like I said, low, lower, low, but that's why I have my confirmed lower high, right? The highest point between the low and the lower low. So that's where I pull my Fibonacci from. And that's where basically not looking to enter a position until the 786, basically, right? So anything in this area kind of thing, that's more so where I'd be looking to short, rather than, which is why I did, obviously. But yeah, rather than shorting into support like that, because especially after this level has only been tested once, that's where, so often and actually that's something that I haven't talked much about on this channel. When I look for breakouts, because sometimes I do play pennants, I do play horizontal breakouts, ascending triangles, descending triangles, that sort of stuff. But the thing is, with this structure level, for example, on the first time, I just assume most of the time that the first time it's not just absolutely going to dump, right? You're going to get some sort of a reaction to retest this level. And the fact that the candle bodies never actually closed below the wicks over here, this was actually just a liquidity grab. This was a little liquidity grab followed by finding support with a nice big green engulfing candle there. So this was actually a bullish sign that, hey, we might get a short-term reversal. Even if the trend is to continue to the downside, this was a sign that we might get some sort of relief. And again, that's where if I'm looking for a short at that point, that's where I start pulling Fibonacci's, just to keep it nice and structured and just to have those pullback targets to look for, kind of thing. So that's kind of my thoughts there. So again, don't feel too bad. Like, that's a mistake a lot of people make, is just kind of going into the breakout, right? But unfortunately, when you do something like that, even if you're correct on this play by shorting into that with momentum, your invalidation is way above here, right? That's a massive move to the upside, and that's a big loss. And that's why I like taking trades at the 786, 886, and the one full retrace. That's why I like taking positions and laddering into positions at those levels, is because at least, every trader, myself included, obviously, every trader loses trades. The important thing is being able to control those trades and keeping, or those losses, sorry, getting tongue tied here. Every trader loses trades, and it's important to keep those losses small. And that's where, when I look for these pullbacks to these fib levels, that really tightens up my risk, right? Because invalidation above my lower high structure here is much closer than if I had entered way down here, right? Mr. Jack, welcome, welcome. Lots of familiar faces in here. Welcome, guys. Love to see it. Germany will buy at 12K. Yeah, who knows, right? It's kind of funny that I know so many people were blaming Germany for this sell-off, but the structure had changed several months before that. Like I was bearish. I was bearish from about here, and then yeah, Germany started selling and all that sort of stuff, and that's what was being blamed. I never even knew that at the time. I don't follow fundamentals all that closely. You guys know this. I mostly just look at structure of charts, and just looking at a 4 hour for what it is, very basic market structure. Um, I didn't need to know that Germany was selling. That had nothing to do with me trading the downside. The only thing that mattered to me was that we had a series of lower lows and pullbacks to lower highs. Even back here when everybody was getting extreme FOMO into the Trump speeches, Trump and Elon speeches, um, I actually, a lot of people look for an edge with information like that. I literally went out of my way to ignore it. I did not want to watch the speeches. I did not want to hear anything about them. I purposely ignored them because I didn't want something to be said that makes me get FOMO. Just like, a lot of people were getting FOMO at this level because everything that was said during that speech was bullish. There was no reason fundamentally to have a big crash after that, except the fact that it was a big buy the rumor, sell the news event right into resistance at, after setting a lower low, pull back to that 786, 886 absolutely perfectly. Perfect sell the news event while everyone got bullish into resistance again. So I literally do everything I can to totally ignore that same sort of thing. Same with unemployment numbers, all that sort of stuff. Yes, I keep it on my radar when those things are happening, just to understand that some crazy volatility might come in which case I'm going to consider actually sitting out of the markets rather than trying to use that information to my advantage and trying to guess how that's going to affect the whole global economy. I just find it a lot more simple to play some basic structure, some basic colorful lines on the chart. I find a lot more simple than understanding the whole global economy. So I will, if anything, I'm going to wait for the market to just kind of decide, form some structure over the next few hours, and start trading again from there. So yeah, I go out of my way to avoid that kind of thing. Long or short now? I'm in two shorts. I'm in a short on Ton and a short on Bitcoin. You also have to understand that it's not always a good time to just pull the trigger one way or another, right? We're right in the middle, even on a small time frame here, we're right in the middle of this range. Like this little range even. We're right in the middle of that. So yeah, it's not always a good time. That's why I love using these Fibonacci's, right? And that's why I wait for those structure breaks and then I wait for those pullbacks. So generally, this, for example, if I wanted to start looking for the next potential bearish setup, this is going to be very theoretical at this point. I want to make this very clear. But let's just say that I want to find the next big bearish structure break. Like, let's say I'm looking for this low to be taken out. I'm just going to set a line there. That is the current support. That's the lower low. If we end up setting, let's say we go like this and we set another lower low. So low, lower low. I'm going to pull a new Fibonacci from my highest point between the two. And then I will have plenty of time while the market screws around trying to get back up to that level. I'll have plenty of time, right? So again, this is all theoretical. This Fibonacci pull I'm about to do is only valid if we actually break this low. Okay, I want to be clear about that. But in that case, I would then pull a Fibonacci from my confirmed lower high, the highest point between the low and the lower low. And then I would end up looking for something like this. I'd be looking to start entering positions somewhere in this area. Now, again, that doesn't mean that, hey, we set a lower low here, time to short. It's my signal to short, but that's when I start, setting orders at these levels up higher, looking for that retrace, trying to get in at a better price. Hopefully that all kind of makes sense. Let's just reload my chart here. Oh, I am going to delete some of this. Some of the older signals here, don't need those, don't need this, don't need this. Yeah, see, we are starting to find that little bit of strength there. So I am glad that I closed 40% of my position there. Again, that was just one of those times. It was a just in case, right? Had this signal come into play, pull a Fibonacci to the high, from that low to the highest point currently on this little run. And so far, we came back to that 786 and found a little bit of support. So that's just kind of why I figured that I should take a little bit off my position. I still want to go lower. I still want to reach this target down here, my range target. That's ideally still my target on this position. But I don't mind reducing my risk quickly when I'm taking, especially because I trade with high leverage, right? Like when I'm trading Bitcoin like this, I'm using 69x leverage on this position right now. So I like to downsize my risk very quickly. On Ton, not quite as much leverage, but I am at 20x leverage. So yeah, we'll see how they play out. 20K gap fill. That is possible, right? I mean, 20K would be just slightly below the weekly 886 because the 886 is at around 22.2K. Notice what happened with our COVID dump. We did actually drop below the 886. So it was respected, right? We did find support there, but we did wick down very briefly. We could absolutely see the same thing this cycle. Again, it does not have to happen. Nothing has to happen. Everything, anything that I'm looking at, especially far into the distant future like that, anything can happen between now and then. Who knows if we're going to get those levels, right? But just looking at it, does it make sense that it could happen? Yes, there's CME gaps there. There's my favorite Fibonacci's there. If this was any other time frame, and guys, like market structure generally works the same. Whether it's a 1 minute chart, 5 minute chart, hour chart, 4-hour chart, weekly chart, generally market structure works the same. So if I see this pattern, and specifically with this RSI divergence here, which is what really led me to be bearish on this trend, when I see that on a 5 minute or a 1 minute chart, I take that short every single time. I'm not going to lie. If I see a break in structure followed by, again, a Stuber fib pullback, right? Because we lost this low here. Where do we end up getting rejected there? Right in the, here, let me just adjust that very slightly from our wick high down to our wick low. And notice we got rejected right at the 786, 886 there. And to go with that, like I said, this big bearish divergence on the RSI. So basically we were approaching the same resistance level with significantly less strength in the market. So it made a lot of sense that we were going to start dumping to the downside, and we just started setting more lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. So yeah, the structure doesn't look great, but that can change, right? We'll have to see what happens, but so far it just doesn't look great. To pretend there's zero red flags is just kind of risky. If it goes in this pattern back and forth for a while, basically no huge dump or pump, then what can we expect? I assume you're talking about basically this, like my 5 minute chart. It totally depends how this plays out, right? As it stands right now, structure is still to the downside. So until this high is broken at this point, and this can obviously change because market structure does change, but as it stands right now, that is my lower high. Let me remove auto charting tools just so we don't confuse you. Just because, again, low, lower low. That means this is our confirmed lower high. And that means that this is so far the low, right? So this is basically the range we're in right now. We still have bearish structure here, setting lower lows, lower highs. So if we just continue trading, chopping sideways, then the way I'm looking at it is structure is still technically bearish. If we get something, this is a little more complicated and it can be easy to confuse. So try and bear with me and hopefully this makes sense. But basically what I would love to see and what would make me flip bullish without breaking this red trend line here is if we had another dump to the downside, got a much tighter range, something like that. So we set, we have this low, lower low, lower low, lower low. This type of a setup right here would actually confirm that we have a new lower high that's nice and close. And if we got a break from there, this would actually be a valid structure break, in my opinion. And in that case, that's where, depending how tight it is, if it's a very small type of structure break like that, I might just pull the trigger immediately, because if the stop loss is very close, then sure. But if it is a little bit bigger, something like this, after we get that break of structure, again, I would just be looking for some sort of a Fibonacci pullback and then looking for a long out of a Stuber fib kind of a thing. But that's all theoretical at this point, right? That is by no means in the chart right now. That's just something that I'll be looking for as far as like how structure could change from here. But as it stands right now, this is the range that I'm interested in. Until we break this low or this high, this is the range we're in. What are the odds we found bottom already? I mean, we'll just have to see, right? I personally think we're going to see way lower prices. I'm happy to be wrong on that. That is a gut feeling just based on the 4-hour and the weekly chart kind of a thing. I do trade shorter time frames anyways. Like I said, that's just a gut feeling. I don't know if I'm lucky enough, because honestly, I would be excited if we got that big correction to the downside. I would be aggressively buying if we get down to those macro Stuber fibs, for example. But again, I don't know how likely that is. I think it would take some sort of a black swan event to get us there. Just want to bring up a couple of the other indicators. Let's just see what they're saying. Another thing that I like to see here, although we are trying to hold above it here, is we've obviously had a series of lower buy and lower sell signals on the Trendmaster indicator. So the way I like to use these indicators is I love just using them as confluence for which way the market is trending, right? And what I mean by that is I don't generally take every buy signal or every sell signal, but I like to basically look at which way the signals are trending and then looking for setups that way, right? So here, sell, and lower sell. Just like here, we have a buy, a lower buy, and a slightly lower buy there. So buys, sells are trending to the downside. And notice I am still pulling bearish Fibonacci's looking for those setups, right? So just using the indicators, which way they're trending, to basically, just notice there's just a series of lower buy signals and lower sell signals when we got this dump to the downside. And we still have those signals trending to the downside. So yeah, there's still potential there for further downside. If we end up setting a higher buy signal, that's another thing that I would start to consider, that, hey, maybe the market is going to get more of a relief rally for a little bit. But so far we don't have that. So what's the 4-hour saying? I'll bring up the Trendmaster indicator. We got a new sell signal, but this is one of those times we got a higher sell signal there. So if we got another higher buy signal, that could be a good sign for Bitcoin on the 4-hour, but we don't have that yet. So not really any clear readings there right now. Looking at liquidations, I mean, there is liquidations, high leverage liquidations, both directions at this point. There is more to the upside, honestly. There's must be a lot of late shorters to the market. But notice that a lot of that liquidity is right below and right in my red box, that 786, 886, kind of from 65 to 68K. But yeah, it's very possible that we end up dumping to the downside, grab this last little bit of liquidity, punish the late shorts, grab this liquidity, set another lower high, and really screw with people's emotions. Absolutely a possibility, right? But yeah, there is high leverage liquidations both directions. Like I said, auto charting tools still technically has the higher high, higher low, but as far as just a naked chart without any indicators or anything, I'm still looking at this as lower highs, lower lows, as far as the macro trend, right? Yeah, I've been using these indicators for about 2 years now, you guys. If these MDX algo indicators do interest you, there's a link down below that gives an additional 10% discount on top of current promotions at checkout. I know I say this all the time. The only other indicator I really use on TradingView is the RSI, and that's just because of those very specific divergences that I like to look for, and I have been looking for years at this point. But other than that, the only indicators I use are these MDX algo indicators. I've been using them religiously every single day for the last just over 2 years now. So yeah, like I said, there's a 10% additional discount with the link down below for that, if that's something that interests you. Ton, I'm actually in a very small loss right now. We did get this little bit of a bounce, but we'll see if we end up holding this lower high signal here. Technically at the 786 again. One thing that I don't like about this, yes, it's potential that, hey, this might be a nice entry for a short right now. I mean, you'd basically be in the same short as me, basically. Something to consider about this, and something that is a little bit alarming for me right now, is that when I play these Stuber fib setups, all right, so when we're getting, after we have a structure break, or, if whether I'm using the auto charting tools, whatever, pulling from this lower high signal to this lower low signal, I give a lot of preference to the very first test. And I know there's a bit of an art to that, because it's very easy to miss the first attempt at those levels. But that's something that just comes with practice and seeing them all the time and that sort of thing. But yeah, basically, the first time that we test those levels, that's where I'm quite confident that we're going to get some sort of reaction, right? So often the first test of a level like that, just like what I was talking about, back here with being, this was the first test, the first test to retesting this where we found support earlier. Kind of the same thing, right? Is that it makes sense that the first test we do get some sort of a reaction there, but the fact that we're starting to test it again already is just showing that, hey, the bears are having a little bit of a hard time holding some momentum and pushing us down to my target. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. Should I get some tunes going again? Actually, I'm going to take off right away. I actually have some things I want to do, and this was just going to be a shorter video, but just for the last little bit, let's try some new music. Let's go through some more examples here. It's annoying, or you can hear over it, or it's too quiet, everything like that. You can took along at the 58K liquidity grab and taking profits. Nice. That was that one I was just talking about. Would you add to your short if it gets there now without first hitting your target, or close break even and wait for the next setup? I assume you're talking like if I would get to the fib pull again. I guess I just kind of went over that. I know you asked the question far before that, but I guess that's kind of what I just went over with this, right? Just after you start to test it a couple more times, when you're testing those entry levels additional times, it just does add a little bit of risk factor, right? So Yes, sometimes I'll play the same levels like 3 or 4 times. Sometimes they just keep getting respected and it works out great. But there's other times where you just kind of get your initial one, or not even, right? There's always the chance that it just doesn't work out. But yeah, there's some added risk when you're entering. I know this is Ton, not Bitcoin, but just because this was a good example, I was just going over. There's just some added risk there if you're entering here, just because it has been tested a couple times, right? And yeah, same with Bitcoin. Basically, if we get back up to these levels, there's just some added risk because we're starting to tap away at resistance at that point rather than just an immediate reaction, right? I'm a miner, and where I live, electricity is cheap as fuck. I'm going to stop mining at these prices if we don't recover in the next 6 months. I have held everything I mined in the past 6 months. We need 80K. Even talking about 20K is criminal. And I know, I don't want to scare you, like 20K. And I want to be clear about this, okay? Like I said, for one, I think it would take a black swan event to push us down to those levels. 2, if we hit those levels, I don't think it's going to last long at all. I know I was talking about this yesterday a little bit, is that even though this looks like it actually took a while because these are weekly candles and there's 2 of them in that pocket, I remember watching this happen live. I was sitting on my couch watching, and I remember Bitcoin pumping about 40%, and I think it was less than an hour, something like that. So when we get to those capitulation levels, it was a very speedy recovery from there, right? Actually, yeah, is that what it was? I want to say it was like 40% or something. Yeah. So to get basically where we bottomed back up to the 786, it was about 40%. So it was very quick. So that's one of those things where, if we end up dropping this range, that's where I am going to be setting limit orders, basically all over this Fibonacci box, because I really think that if we end up capitulating down to those levels, I think we're going to get a very serious springboard effect from those levels. Anything can happen. I don't think we need to go down to those levels. And if we go down there, we don't need to springboard back. But that's kind of what my theory is. That's how I plan to play it if it does happen. But I don't think this is the kind of thing where we can say, hey, if we get down to these levels, I want to see how it reacts. I think that's off the table. I think that we are going to drop in if we get down to those levels. And I think it's going to be very short-lived. So yeah, like I said, if we end up dropping this range of support here, I'm just going to start setting limit orders. Loving the stream. Thanks. Oh, I'd love to hear it. I love to hear that you guys are pulling something productive out of these. Again, if you do appreciate these streams, if you could just hit that like button for me, that would be absolutely fantastic. Obviously, subscribe to Financial Summit if you haven't, because I'm always doing live streams here now. And as well, my own YouTube channel, Stu Trading, all one word. I also do some live streams and shorter videos and stuff there. So yeah, we're starting to struggle with that 786 again. But again, there is added risk to this Ton position at this point. Just be aware of that. If that's something you're going to play, just keep position sizing and stuff like that in the back of your mind that, hey, there is a little bit of extra risk here. When face reveal. I have a shitty webcam. I should get a new one. My face is not hidden by any means. I'm on like Twitter and it's on my YouTube channel and stuff like that. I just don't have it in these streams. I'm new to streaming here, so I'm just kind of getting comfortable with the streaming platform and everything. So eventually I'll probably start doing the old live face thing. BTC sell? Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, another, well, yeah, like I said, I guess this is still from earlier. Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of weakness. On top of these downward sloping sell signals, we actually got these downward sloping pivots as well. These P signals, those are for pivots. So yeah, there's still a few things lining up for me here. How's everyone else feeling on the market? Is anyone in any interesting positions? I know a couple of you guys have shared yours. My screen is not clear. Is anyone else having a hard time seeing my screen? It is only live streaming in 720p. I never saw an option for 1080, but hopefully you guys can see everything clear enough. I don't think I'm having any connection issues or anything like that, but yeah, it might just be how it's streaming through the cloud or whatever. My internet's getting great speed right now, so it's clear. Okay. Whew. Okay, perfect. Scared me. Thanks, guys. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Expecting more volatility after Nvidia earnings. That's interesting because that would have just happened. Like I said, I'm not much of a fundamental guy, but I think that was right around market close. So any bullish divergences on the daily? Let's take a look. So here, let me just get rid of a few things. So here's the thing with me, there's very specific divergences that I trade. I don't trade all divergences by any means, more so just those overextended ones that I was talking about, like on the weekly. So I would really only consider it and this is just myself because this is how I trade, right? If you look at it differently, then so be it. But this is just me personally. I mostly only look for those divergences when we're trading near the same level. So this, for example, again, kind of the 786 is where I'm starting to consider it. But if, let's say, the RSI starts trending towards this level, that 30 level, so just not quite oversold like it got back here, that's kind of the type of divergence that I would be willing to give a little bit of credit to. That's because we're going from overextended up into regular territory, but I would want to see the price, reflect something very similar that, anywhere in this level from the 786 down to double bottom territory with a bullish divergence. In that case, I would absolutely be looking for some sort of a bounce to the upside from there. But just how the chart looks right now, I'm just personally, just for my type of trade setups, I'm not considering it much of a valid divergence. Not to say there isn't one there. It's just not the type of trade setup I take. So I was really looking for that with the 4 hour. I was quite vocal about this for, I think, over a week at this point. That's what I was really wanting. I really wanted us to test down towards this 52, down towards 50K level. That would just be, from where we currently rallied to, that would basically be a pullback to the 786, 886. And since we had such a strong oversold conditions on the RSI when we did bottom out around 49K, I really wanted to see a big, beautiful bullish divergence as we trade back down towards that Stuber pocket. Unfortunately, the RSI is already getting in towards that oversold territory. So, I mean, it's hard to say if this is actually just saying there's a shit ton of selling pressure because we're going overextended again, or if, you know, or if maybe the RSI has already bottomed out. But I myself, I don't know. I don't like that we're getting towards oversold conditions again without getting towards these levels. I really wanted to see a big bullish divergence down at these levels. That would have actually made me quite bullish for at least the midterm. And we had the same thing back here, right? Even though this is actually one of those times, you know, I was talking about, you know, when structure breaks and people are late to the party, right? We had this low, we set a lower low. So a lot of people were FOMO shorting into this, trying to catch a breakout, but then they end up getting wrecked because we get some sort of a pullback, right? And invalidation's way up at these levels. But what we got here is, even though this made me very bearish, this break in structure made me very bearish, but I longed this almost perfectly, actually. I think it was within $15 or something like that. And the only reason for that was because we had that exact setup, right? We had extremely oversold conditions here. And then I was looking for that bullish divergence as we pulled back towards the 786, 886 fib pocket. And notice what happens here. Perfectly, you know, right to that 786, basically. Beautiful bullish divergence. And that's where we just climbed to my opposite target, right? Where does it make sense that reversal rally would run to? And then I'm just looking for that macro resistance, right? And where did we end up finding resistance? Right at that 786, 886. So yeah, even though down here I was extremely bearish, I was still short term playing the bullish side because I was just looking for those higher entries for playing the short, right? But just before I went on that rant there, so this right here is more so I was looking for a much bigger version of that right here, basically pulling back to those levels and seeing a nice big juicy RSI divergence. But right now it's kind of looking like I don't know if we're gonna get that. If we do, I'm gonna be mega bullish short term. But if we just end up back into these, you know, overextended conditions as we end up coming down here, I mean, I think it's possible that's just showing a lot of sell strength, and we might just nuke from there. Anyways, legends, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. I just wanted to go over, you know, how yesterday's setup played out, kind of what I'm looking at for these setups today and that sort of thing. Just really wanted to do a shorter stream today. Hopefully you did find this stream useful. If you appreciate my take on the markets, my, you know, when I'm going through my trading strategies, how I look at structure, all that sort of thing. If you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to Financial Summit as well as my own channel. That would be just fantastic. And as well, if you are interested in my absolute favorite indicators on TradingView, there's an additional 10% discount on checkout using the link down below. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.